1 year ago today, World War I came to an end. Armistice Day. But armistice is a word of not end of war. It's just a cessation of war. And that's what we have been in since the Civil War. A cessation of violence. While violence percolates and bubbles up and goes on somewhere else. Ever since man recorded stories, the story was about humanity and the visitor. So that's what I would like to talk about this evening. How many of you have had an experience of being visited? Oops. I'm only half white. I need those. I'll put them back on. But right now, meaning the idea of the UFO has been in the Bible, in all of the old stories. There's always someone coming from the sky. How many of you had experiences where someone visited you? I'd like to hear that. I think everyone else would. So here it is, close to 7. It was like 7:10 or 7:05 or 7:02. Close enough. It's now 2 minutes, 27 seconds. So I've been visited many times. And number of the visits were ones that were more than a super something that was fine, meaning they with respect, and I invited them in with respect, and we had a deep conversation to the point that my worldview changed a great where that's when I stopped really being a religious person and became a spiritual person, where I lived in service to love rather than in fear of it. And I had experiences as a child being visited. I'm a teenager visited, adult visited. And I've seen many crafts and many extraordinary things in the sky. So I'll tell you a few stories. And they won't be in a chronological order. I'll just kind of pick and choose. I've been living in Virginia in the Roanoke Valley for almost 20 years. I got here in 1999. And I was tasked by one of my employers to study satanic cults. And from Lexington, Virginia to Asheville, North Carolina, it's called the Devil's Path. There are more satanic sacrifice murders from Lexington down 81 over at Johnson City into on 26 down to Asheville. And the police, both local, state, and federal, do not like to call them satanic sacrifice murders. They call them accidents, they call them suicides, they call them shootouts, whatever, but not satanic murder sacrifices, even though these people are found staked to the ground inside a pentagon and certain organs of their body missing. So I don't know how that could be, suicide. Anyway, I was tasked to study this, and that's how I found my way here. And when you are the shamanic psychosocial cultural forensic anthropologist, alchemist, you don't tell people you're that, you know. Hey, if I was tasked in a university, I'm just a teacher, I'm just an instructor. Or if I was footloose and fancy free, I'd go find myself a job as an electrician. Because up until now, when I'm physically not, I could still be employed. If somebody wanted me to run some jobs, hey, I'd make them money. I was always good at making people money. And them being thankful for it. So I was looking between Lexington and Roanoke as one of the most highly charged cult areas, and most of those were run under the guise of churches, Christian churches mostly. And so I kind of cruised into heard a number of incidents, fire houses and prisons and jails and hospitals. And these guys, they were one of the older companies in the valley, but they really just wired houses with Romex. They hardly had anybody who could bend pipe, or let alone balancing panels and controls and large horse three-phase motors. I think someone is paying. Anyway, so I stumbled across this guy who was quite interesting. He was a great musician. He was a martial artist, and he proclaimed himself to be an ascended master. And not so much. He was a nice enough guy, but he was making lots of money out of it. He got everyone to pay him hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. And he was married to the most beautiful, this woman ran his everything and made sure he was, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And the one thing I liked best about this guy was that he would have classes, and he had a nice 60-acre thing right along the edge of the Blue Ridge Mountains, right along this county road. It was either 47 or 42, kind of near Bedford. And it was like being in Switzerland. It was really nice. And he had this beautiful little stand, a forest with a clear meadow in the middle. And we would camp there. And he had been a Eagle Scout. So he was really Mr. Camper. He pretty much what he did, he did really well. And the thing I really liked about being in his cult was that everybody was nice. There was no real, backbiting. I would have called it a church, but he wasn't, he didn't call it a church. He didn't call it a cult, but, a cult is when everyone follows the individual, not the teachings. Anyway, so he was really hopped for the end of the world in the year 2000, right? And I kind of already knew that wasn't going to be. I studied computer. I hung around with enough computer people who pretty much said, "Don't worry about it. They just have to reset the clock and do a few patches, and everything's going to go good. This is just being advertised this way for people to make a lot of money." So, I was not that, upset or worried, and but he was preparing everyone for Mad Max, right? He had this really nice little compound, and he was getting everyone to learn how to shoot guns, right? Now, I can shoot a gun pretty good, and and I know I knew martial arts pretty well. So he was teaching martial arts, and I was a big boy at that time, and my illnesses were kind of kicking in. So I was slow. I walked with a cane, and I would go to the martial arts classes, and I would do the katas, the exercises, and I would do the meditation. But I wouldn't, get up there and try to beat somebody up because, hey, that's not even my thing. Anyway, one day, Sensei, yeah, that's what he called himself, but it was teacher, so it was appropriate for him. But everyone said it with like he was God, and that's not the word. Sensei means the word teacher. Anyway, so he for some reason wanted me to fight him, right? And I was like, "Oh, really? You want to do that? I don't know. I'm pretty old and pretty sick. Be gentle on me." Anyway, he went to grab me to throw me across the room because he used to do that to a lot of people. Because jiu-jitsu is all about leverage. Anyway, I set my chi in the ground. He grabbed me to throw me, and he threw his back out. He ended up in the hospital. And that's what you can do when you set your chi. But that's really neither here nor there. So he never did that again. And I apologized profusely, and was always, and I was either his, you're going to be second in command, you're the smart one, I need you, blah blah blah, right? I mean, which is always fun. It's always nice when people tell you that. It's good for your ego. But I have a egoless ego. Yeah, I got one, but I don't motivate myself through my ego. But anyway, one 4th of July, when we were shooting off lots of guns, and again, he was like, wanted me to shoot a gun, and I didn't want to, I don't like guns. I don't like the way they sound. I don't like gun oil, and I surely don't like the cordite that's used to set off the charge inside of the chamber. I don't like the way it smells. But I'm pretty good at a shot. So anyway, we, did rifle range. And anyway, he made me shoot a gun, right? And I said, so, and so he had all these rifles. So everyone's lying prone on the ground, leaning their gun up against a bag of sand and taking their time and breathing and taking a shot. And most people were like at least hitting the target, but not coming close to it, the center, the bullseye. Anyway, I don't want to get down on the ground. I'm like gravitationally challenged. So I took the gun. I made sure there was a cartridge in the chamber, and that the magazine was how many were in there. I put it back in, cocked it, and put 4 rounds, bang, 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 straight in the bullseye. And then he looked, and then so I hit automatic and pretty much ate up the center of the target. So he stopped asking me to practice. Anyway, and he had little girls shooting shotguns. 2 girls one girl broke her jaw, and the other broke her dislocated her shoulder. So anyway, but it was a 4th of July, and there was me, and I was like, the really smart one, or I was really stupid, which is, basically my, in the court of anyone's court, that is my position, to be really the smart one or really stupid. I'm either the court magician or the court jester. And usually that job is filled by the same guy. He just has 2 different hats. So anyway, this day, it's 4th of July, and there's me, and there's, he's got a following of, I don't know, 40 or 50, waiting for the end of the world. And he's shooting off fireworks down in the meadow. And me and 4 other guys, one guy is an older guy who's pretty smart and read a lot, and he's interested in he's old. He wants to be in a community. He kind of feels Y2K, end of world, might as well be here. I mean, this guy's got a place in the ground, a generator that I built for him. And and lots of food and guns, which is not really the way to survive. Anyway, so there's that guy, and then there's two younger guys who were kind of, they joined because they wanted to learn martial arts, right? And the guy who runs this thing, I'm just going to call him the guy. He is really slick. I mean, he can really get into people's heads and figure out how to take advantage of them. So he's kind of done that to these two guys. Anyway, so we are sitting on the couch, and one of the guys has brought a cooler with some beers. So while everyone's down there trying to shoot off fireworks and put off explosives, and anyway, we're just sitting there shooting the breeze. And then see this little pattern above my head. Well, a similar vortex appeared over the meadow where they were. And for some reason, they couldn't see it above them, but from our vantage point, we could see it. And it first started as a bright little light. And then it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and you could see another universe. You could see stars in it on the other side. And the four of us were like, what the fuck? We hadn't smoked anything. We pretty much have only had one beer apiece. And this is truly frigging amazing. And then a ship comes out of this vortex, and the vortex kind of moves over and forms another sun. Well, the sun is going down to the west, and this sucker's over in the north. And still these yahoos are not seeing any of this. And as the sun goes down, this thing's getting brighter and brighter. And the ship is zipping around. It's like zipping away, coming back, zipping over there, coming back. And then it zips right above us by, I don't know, somewhere between 500 and 1,000 feet. And bing! Like bright, bright light shines right in front of our feet. It can't get us because the thing of the porch is over our heads, but it's like right where our toes are. And we're like, whoa! And I kind of say a little prayer and look up and I say, okay, if you want to come and visit, this is a great time. I mean, just laying down where that guy is, the dude, no, I'm the dude, what's his name, and show him what's going on. And then basically the frigging ship goes back through the portal, and the portal turns into a smiley face and pops away. Now, the smiley face may not happen. I thought it was, but, hey, maybe not. But I did not get any sense of malevolence. So, let's see what you guys have said. Let's see. I have to put on my other pair of glasses to read this. Nine books you there. Okay. What do we got here? Let's see. Hi, Sensei. Any earthen mounds down there? Yeah, there are. There are plenty of them. We're tilled. In Ireland, on the west coast, there is a pyramid that Archie and I found. And it was unearthed. And it is an actual working apparatus, And it's on the west coast. They call it a burial ground, but if you go there, you can tell that it is a highly charged a spiritual tool. And when I went there with the ladies who were looking for real estate, and they wanted to see this thing, I went there. And, they went on the tour and all that, and I didn't feel like doing that. And so, and it was one of those, and now we're walking, so the woman who was giving the tour was a total moron. And, I just sat under a tree and was drinking a bottle of water and meditating. And I see this guy, and he's smoking a joint. I mean, I could smell it. So I go over there, and I go, hey, buddy, can I have a puff of that? I could really use it because my legs were hurting, my back was hurting. My head was hurting from being with those rich ladies and being on the tour. And now we're walking. And the guy goes, looks at me, goes, sure. And so we're smoking it. And we're like not hiding. We're like kind of, leaning against the wall of this facility. And, he's not in a suit, but he's in, more business attire per se. And people who seem to work there walk by him and basically salute him. And I look at him and say, so, you're the boss here. That's why you can smoke pot in the open. And he goes, yep. And I said, so this is a active spiritual machine. And he looks at me like, whoa, who are you? And I go, well, I'm just a shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemist. And I went over this ground 30 years ago with a guy named Archie. You know Archie? I said, yeah. You know, he kind of was turned on to me by the old crone. You knew the old crone? And I said, yeah, I did. And he goes, well, I've heard all about her. Tell me about it, And then he like wants me to tell him stories. Now here's a guy who's running a state facility. I mean, he obviously has a bunch of degrees, and he understands that this thing is a active spiritual tool machine that is a zillions of years old and has lots to do with dimensional dynamics and well, the tops were tilled, but the juice is still there. Big hugs, buddy bud. Love you, boy. Love you all. Marshall, buddy. Who else is here? Last ride, Mr. Ride, Miss Ride. Idea the significance of a river bend where their sites and grounds are. Yes, it's all energetic. It's all ley lines. It's all what's going on right now. That's why our weather is so weird. It's not those morons doing, their attempt at, Earth engineering. HARP and chemtrails. Now, all those things definitely have effects. Nothing. Everything has an effect, but not on the scale of nature. These morons think they can challenge nature, conquer nature, control nature. No. The best we can do is be co-collaborators with love. Then we can do something pretty interesting. So let's hear it, kids. Anybody have any stories of their experiences with, dimensional things, ghosts, paranormal, flying saucers, any of the above? Men in Black. I have a great Men in Black story. So this crew that I was part of the U.S. Psychotronic Society, Al Bielik, Duncan, his brother. I always forget the big guy's name. He wrote a book called The Montauk Project. Anyway, that guy had a little house. This guy, Preston Nichols, that's his name. He had the best collection. There was a place down where the World Trade Center was built. It used to be called Radio Row. And it was where all this electronics, U.S. government surplus. Most surplus places you can buy a tent or a jacket, but this place, sold the Nike Zeus radar system. So, you could get some pretty interesting stuff there. And it had a lot of, 1890s to 1940s radios that were more on a scalar principle than on, just, a radio principle of harmonics, hertz. So anyway, I used to cruise that neck of the woods, and it was, not too far away from Grandpa Stoll. Owned a couple of buildings down there. Anyway, let's see, my ships lights at different times, alone and with others. Preston is a very dodgy guy. Yes, he's a dodgy guy, but he's an interesting guy. All those guys are dodgy guys, but they're interesting, especially in 1979 and 1986 when I was hanging with those guys. And those guys had been, you know, like I said, they were working for DARPA. They were working for, all of them were working for the military industrial complex on some level. I was just there to tag along, have a good time, and see what they were doing. But so Preston had this house in Long Island near Grumman Aerospace, where he worked. But he didn't work for Grumman; he worked for Sperry. And Grumman had all of these because all of the real deep research was done by the corporate world, not the military world. You know, because with FOIA requests, you know, you could ask for stuff from the government. You can't ask stuff from Lockheed Martin. You know, it's proprietorial. So anyway, we're there, and we're playing. Preston had this great scalar amplifier that if you ran your tape or your record through it and then through an amplifier and then into a speaker, you could feel the emotions of the people who made the recording. It was quite extraordinary. So he had a lot of little toys like that, and I had, you know, let's see, that's about 15 years before, was working, you know, playing with those kind of toys at Duke University for the SEAL Corporation that was trying to invent super soldiers and people live forever and you know, artificial intelligence in human beings, that kind of fun stuff, and remote viewing and contactees. They were researching contactees. Yeah, Travis Walton. Yep, yep. I met him at one of those conferencey things. He's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. But I mean, one of the reasons I got out of that scene, A, it was like high school. B, there were so many damaged people, and I could just feel their suffering. It was never that fun. C, the powers that shouldn't be were always there playing with people. And it wasn't really, you know, guys like Steve Greer. I know him pretty well, and he's a nice enough guy, but he falls in that category of he wants to be Jesus Christ. You know, they're going to have, you know, what do they call it when they tell people about it? Starts with a D. Well, that's never going to happen. Basically, what's happening for the last 50 years, you know, 50 years, when it was really obvious that somebody was there, was when the L.A. flap went down in 1942. You know, these big frigging ships slowly moved over L.A. and you know, it was just after the Japanese had attacked Pearl Harbor, so they had their anti-air. I mean, they thought that the Japs were coming on, you know, to California, which it would have been smart if they had done it. You know, if the Japs had like taken Hawaii, which they could have very easily, you know, that would have, you know, but they make mistakes. But anyway, you know, the military actually thought, and that's why they took the Japs, you know, the American citizens who were of Japanese descent, who had been Americans for like 4 or 5 generations, they put them in concentration camps. I mean, it was more about real estate because the guy who ran L.A. and California, FDR was running for president again, and he guaranteed California for him if he would put all the Japanese in concentration camps and put him in charge of like Homeland Security for California so he could take all the Japanese real estate for a penny on the dollar. I mean, that was why the Japanese were put in those camps. But anyway, back to the story. That was when the first real, you know, everyone in LA saw those frigging big ships up in the sky. I was like, what the fuck is that? And they saw the anti-aircraft you know, guns, because these things were pretty low, and they were right in floodlights, gigantic floodlights, and they were lit up like daytime, and the guns were hitting those ships point blank, and the shells were bouncing off and flying down into your neighbor's garden and blowing up. Like 30 or 40 people died from ordnance that our military was shooting at these things, and they stuck up there for a couple of hours and just went up the coast of, from like L.A. up to San Francisco and almost up to Washington, and then took off. But that was when lots of people saw this and said, "What the fuck is that?" And we're at war. It's like people were freaking fucking out. So there have been tremendous amounts of contact. Oh, ooh. Okay, let's see. Here's my experience. Interaction through EMF. Yep, electromagnetic force. Satellite, heart radio, as well as topics that people talk to me about ID at that moment. Scalar, similar to orgone energy. No, they're all energies, but scalar is a 16 dimension. Radio, anything Hertzian is on an XY coordinate, right? Whereas scalar is 16 dimensions, right? So scalar radio, you can talk to other dimensions, you can talk through time. You can do a lot of things. It's interesting. And there, if you were to, Google scalar, Tesla scalar waves, that's what HARP is, basically. Disclosure, that's the word I was looking for. It won't happen because the government would have a lot to answer for. That's true, but hey, if they were to say, oh, by the way, we have free energy. Oh, by the way, we can cure any disease. Oh, by the way, we can bring peace to the earth, which if they have disclosure, that's what they could do. And, bring in, the Federation of Planets, Now, if they did that, I think we would forgive those guys for being assholes for the last 60 years. What should I say? Great resourcer. He did DNA analysis. Skulls in around. Yep. I know. I've heard of this guy. And the other interesting thing about DNA. So, my little juxtaposition of any of this is the most important thing of all of this isn't the hardware, isn't the flying sword, because the Nazis built the Bell in fucking 38. Tesla and other folk see, when I keep saying the powers that shouldn't be, that's a big group, and it's a bunch of little groups. It's like a mob. You see the movies where Al Capone was head of the table, and then there were all these other guys who had their own little mobs that kind of work together, and that is what we've got going on this planet. There is no singular group with the power, except for the KM, because they're older than anybody else, and they've been doing it. They got a lot of money, a lot of power, and those guys, through the Thule Society and other societies like that, had contacted different, and there were a ton, and still are a ton, of extraterrestrial and dimensional characters running around. And they all had their partners in this, The U.S. had the Greys, the English had the reptiles, and the Nazis had the Aryans, And so this is more than just one thing going on. There's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of people are having, so the Mideast, different power groups are having these wars over there so they don't have to have the war, right? And it's been that way, since the United States. France and England came over here, Spain, and they warred here, so they didn't have to war in Europe because that's what kept, you know, Europe in the 900 years of being in the dark. But that was the Catholic Church really wanting that to happen. So so there've been, and so it's just like human beings. There's some altruistic, I like to call them just visitors because when you use the word extraterrestrial or dimensional or any of that, there's too much baggage. So visitors is a better term. Negative blood, which I ready to hybrid skulls. Yep. This is true. Now, good old Steven Spielberg, he does make some interesting movies, and especially all of his Indiana the Indiana movies. Everyone was, except that one about India, but, it tried to tell the white people about Vedic history and culture. But anyway, his one, where Indiana is like looking for the elongated heads, skulls. That was pretty right on about everything that it said. And, I loved, the opening of the movie where the Russians could just drive into Area 51, And the girl with the riding boots and the sword, and she used her W's in a very strange way. I mean, that's what I love about movies. They really do give everyone a heads up. It sticks it into our collective unconscious. But we have to wake up. We have to embrace our responsibility to be in service to love's love. So let's see what else we have to say here. Reptiles. Well, see, the Germans have always been played, right? And they've been used for the last 1,000 years. Their whole Teutonic, Germanic, everything has been played. And, the German people were bombed into the Stone Age after World War II. And the Russians, English, and certain elements of the American government were going to let them all starve, right? And if it wasn't for what's-his-name, who had the what's-his-name's plan that fed the Germans and brought them back, and they realized the Germans had to be part of the crew, You couldn't, because, see, that's why Germany always steps up and tries to conquer, because people treat them like shit all the time. So anyway, the poor German folk from before World War One and until now have been played by all three: the Greys, the Reptiles, and the Nordics. And you have to realize that their bloodline is the Reptiles. It just moved over to England through the Queen of England and her whole family, the Buckingham Palace crew. Philip, Elizabeth's husband, he went to a Nazi prep school. All his brothers were SS officers. Check that one out, Just like Barbara Bush, what's that guy's name? Who's the guy who started the Church of Satan over there in England? As above, so below. What's his name? Sex magic, the whole thing. Well, Barbara's mother came from a rich American banking family. And, after they finished college, they were sent off to Europe to go have Crowley, thank you. Were sent off to England, Europe, to sow their oats so they could come back, and married the connected person, and then, live the rich person, powerful life. Well, Barbara went over there, and she got hooked up with Crowley, had sex magic, and got pregnant. Not Barbara, Barbara's mom. So Barbara's genetic biological father is Crowley. So that means George H. married the devil's daughter, and George W.'s grandpa was the devil, and his mom was the bitch of his grandma was the bitch of the devil, and his mother, half of her DNA is coming from Satan. Hey, how you like that one? So, I won't go any further than that, but that's how whack everything is. And the only thing that is of a true value is service to love's co-creation. Hitler died in the USA in 1968. This is true. So tell us more about that, because he was one of the people who came here via, Operation Paperclip. And Adolf was a pretty smart dude. I mean, what Adolf was one of those people who are now contactees, why people are I mean, I see a lot of stuff, and I meet a lot of strange individuals, but that element of contacting, I have a little bit of that in me, but my scientist brain is a little stronger. So every time I meet these guys, it's like equal footing. It's not like they are doing their whatever they do doesn't surprise me, doesn't freak me out. They want to talk in my head. That's not a problem, And all of us here, we are almost doing that here on this little live chat. We are talking to each other in our heads through the chat. And when we go to bed tonight, I want everyone to kind of meditate before we go to bed and see if we can do a live chat. Without technology. Because, man, they're putting that 5G, like I said, I saw Cox Cable putting those little antennas all over the valley, and especially in the rural areas where they don't have big towers. And I saw one Cox truck doing it, and I saw 2 or 3, and then after a few days, I had nowhere to go, and it's a sunny day, it wasn't raining, and the guys were not up in a bucket, that they were just kind of hanging out by their truck. I stopped and said, "Hey, what are you guys doing? What are those little things?" And they said, "Oh, that's 5G." So we are in these 40 days, 40 nights, but we've been here before. Not as interesting as now, but we have great opportunities to bring love and light to our brothers and sisters of all our relations. Let's see, the mono arc. Check that out. What is the mono arch? Mono arch. He is said to have disappeared through a mirror once. Yep. Well, you can do that, but it's you don't want to do that. Interview with Jenna Bush and Barbara Bush. So tell us more about these things, folks. Mr. Ride, tell us more about Buddy. What is the mono arch? Jane, what is? I know the girls are funny, but what did they say? See, all wars are planned. Yep, and all masters at the top. Cap of stone. Yep. We're waking up to this. And every time there's a friggin' war, people are waking up to this. They have a war and they get everyone killed. I told you, Al, to look out for the 5G. Yep, buddy. Didn't I look out for it? Here I am looking out for it. And I talked to them about, hey, doesn't this, and the guys putting up those antennas had no idea how they worked. Well, I don't know anything about this. I'm just sticking it on the pole like my boss tells me and hooking it up to the internet. Yep. What will probably be worse than them croaking will be them basically still being alive but suffering. does EMF feel like? Well, see, EMF, electromagnetic frequency, is a frequency, right? It's the amplitude, how much juice you pump into it that would make you feel like it. So if you're in a field, if you're standing underneath a high tension line, you can feel that. You can feel it affecting your little follicles on your arms. Is a supreme monarchy. Okay. I will have to take a look at that. The people is the arch. Okay. It shows the less support, which is the states, and the right support, the English royals. Okay, buddy. I got my homework. I'm going to go check that out. Not this minute, but, in the next day or so. Tomorrow, is one of my library days, so I will go look at that. Was being freaked out by Grandma Barbara Bush, who was wearing a witch's hat, and Barbara had kept her dead fetus in a bell jar. Yes, Barbara was such a sweetheart. Monarchy. Okay, I get you. Monarch is monarchy. Gotcha. Okay, let's see. Peter and the Rock. Well, tell me about Peter and the Rock. Are we going biblical? Is that where we're going? St. Peter? What Peter and the Rock? Peter and the Wolf. Peter and the Rock. 48 minutes, okay. I'm going to keep this on an hour because I'm starting to fade. And I'm going to study all the stuff Buddy has given me to study. And maybe tomorrow night I will talk about things that I have found. And I will look at this chat and look at what piques my little brain, and I will go look at it and see if I can get subject matter we can discuss tomorrow evening. But I will probably do a morning one, either from my breakfast spot. If I go there, I will try and sit amongst people and talk to them like I did to that fellow at the hot dog stand. That turned out to be a nice one. And I would love it. Buddy, I couldn't even remember your name. You didn't give me your name. Your name's not even on. Yes, you dug up dead people. If my brother, who is watching, who was at the hot dog stand, contact me. I really liked our conversation, and I tried to get the thing you gave me on your card. Gmail says it doesn't exist, and you gave me, my other card had a bunch of stuff on it. My phone number. Call me. I gave you my, that card was from old days, so all the Gmails and stuff. No longer, they exist, but I don't use them. Buddy Blind. Marcus, are you the guy who I met at the hot dog store? Is that you there? Are you my brother from another mother? Well, you're all brothers and sisters from another mother. No. Okay. Anyway, it's now 51:01, 02, or 03. We're down to 8. We were up to double digits there for a while. So, what else can I say? Not much. I'm thinking is, someone keeps friggin' with our chat here, interrupting, putting commercials, telling me to relocate my phone, and I have to put it in a place where I'm most uncomfortable. How can you? I don't know. How can you? Is there any way that you guys can do this without me? I mean, you want to chat. Maybe I'll just keep it running and I'll fall asleep. How about that? We'll do that. I'm not going to turn it off, okay? I'm just going to put it here and let you guys chat, okay? Can you see me? Can you see me calling? Chatters, chatters. What's a Zoom room? Yeah, guys, set up anything you want. Just don't, you know, let me be part of it too. Wow. Yes. We can see you. LOL. Okay. Sounds like a plan. Do the Zoom room. But I would love it if someone could contact me on my Gmail. The dude awake 42 at Gmail, and explain to me what a Zoom room is, how I take part in it. And, there are a lot of things I want to set up, within the context of a blog and lots of other stuff, I have kind of plans that I'd like to pursue with you guys, I'd like it if I could text you, like 20 or 30 pages of a concept, of a piece of technology, things of that nature. More than, hey, how you doing? So, again, stay in contact with me at judawake42 at Gmail. And I love you guys, and I am going to go to sleep now, okay? Sweet, you zoom away and zoom your room, and I'm gonna try and get a morning chat sometime between 8 and 10, like I did today, okay? Sometime between 8 and 10, my time. And then I will try and do one tomorrow evening around 7, just like around now, sometime between 7 and 7:30. Okay, guys, so I love you guys. Stay in touch, and I'll talk to you later.